I was at a point in my career and I loved what I was doing, but I just kind of wanted more challenge. I was like, I'm not getting enough that's exciting me enough, that's really helping me feel that I could grow more. And I thought I had more potential. As someone who's delivering the work and working with the customers, you feel so much better at the end of the day if you believe your customer has had value from the work that you've delivered. I found in the few times that I've tried to be very linear and be like, oh, but this is the natural next step, I've become unhappy because I'm forcing myself down a path that may not necessarily be open, but also may not be one that is kind of ticking the things that I enjoy in life.
Hello. Welcome back to the Women in Customer Success podcast. Today, I am obviously super excited to introduce to you an incredible woman, incredible lady. She has an amazing career from consultancy to so many other things that she will tell us about. And she's a Brit, moved to the US, and I can't wait to hear why. Liz Starling, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. And what a great way to start Friday with all these wonderful compliments.
Yes, it's Friday now, soon to be Friday 5 o'clock anywhere in the world. Liz, we all are dying to know a bit more about you. Tell me, what is your favorite exercise?
CrossFit.
CrossFit. How often are you doing it?
I do it 5 times a week. I'm a 5:30 a.m. wake up person.
What's the exercise you've done in your life and you would not repeat again if possible? Or training?
Not repeat again. Probably a marathon. I did New York Marathon in November 2024. Amazing experience, but one I don't plan to repeat.
Thank you for the tip. What is your next travel destination?
Whistler. I'm hitting the mountains and skiing. So I've got a kind of 5-day ski trip.
Beautiful. 2 more of these rapid fires. One book that had a profound impact on your life.
I wouldn't say it's quite yet, but actually I'm going to pull it out because I got this yesterday, which is Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which is from the Female Invest startup. And it's about women knowing how to invest and really empowering ourselves. So I'm super excited about that one.
Oh, I'm excited about that title. I'm going to check it out for sure. And Liz, tell me, would a 16-year-old Liz be surprised to find you in your current role?
100%. Yes. I had very different goals and passions when I was 16.
Okay, what was different?
Well, I'm an absolute avid lover of the natural environment, and I'm actually an environmental scientist by trade, which is where I started my career. We'll talk about that later. But I wanted to be in the natural environment. I wanted to work in that, and that was ultimately what my 16-year-old self expected.
And here you are in the office, typically in a corporate, in tech, maybe nothing to do with environment, at least it may seem like it. But still, you did start your career in environment, right? So tell us through that journey. How did environmentalist Liz work her way up to consulting and then customer success? That's quite a journey.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey and probably not the most standard of ones. So as I said, I absolutely love the natural environment, being in it, and trained up as an environmental scientist. And first kind of role outside of university was becoming an environmental regulator for the Environment Agency in the UK. So equivalent would be the Environmental Protection Agency in the US. And absolutely loved it. So I got to be outside. I was regulating multiple massive organizations. Think of your big manufacturers, your big chemical plants, landfills, all of these things. And my goal was to make sure that the customers and all of these operators were compliant with environmental legislation. So obviously you have the kind of stick where you can kind of take them to court and you can prosecute them. And that was part of my role, especially after major pollution incidents, was building the legal case that lawyers could then prosecute. But you don't want to take everybody to court. It's not the most effective way. So you're building these relationships with these kind of operators, and you're kind of guiding them to be like, I get this doesn't seem like the easiest legislation to follow, but this is why you want to do it. And this is how it's going to help your business. So that was kind of like, loved doing it. It was fantastic. And I learned some really cool skills around like how to influence people, how to build relationships. And I kind of moved on then into a couple of other environmental roles. One was for kind of Transport for London and kind of driving their environmental operations. And then I moved into a fact that I was at a point in my career and I loved what I was doing, but I just kind of wanted more challenge. I was like, I'm not getting enough that's exciting me enough, that's really helping me feel that I could grow more. And I thought I had more potential. So I actually moved into sustainability consulting. A little bit embarrassing fact, I did not know what consulting was. I'd never had an interest in business, never looked at it. Friends would be like, I work for these companies. I didn't even know who they were. And I kind of fell into this role as a sustainability consultant. And what I very quickly learned was they didn't really have a very big sustainability practice. And when I talked about an environment, they were thinking about a technical environment. So I was in this kind of company being like, this isn't maybe a great fit. But then I kind of took a step back and was like, hang on a second, let's look at the skills I do have that may actually apply to this role. And those were the things I was saying earlier, like relationship management, stakeholders, how do you influence, how do you kind of, understand what a business is trying to do and get them to the goals they want to do. And they are really useful skills in consulting as a whole. So I actually went from there and started focusing on change management and workforce transformation. So working with major companies to understand, hang on a second, what are you trying to do? How do we improve your processes? How do we influence all of your organization to do the same thing and move to the goals that you want? So it was actually really eye-opening at that point in time, having been an environmentalist, know all about environmental legislation, suddenly consulting and directing customers who were doing major technology transformations, and I could barely, use my computer. So it was like a really interesting experience for me. And from there, I realized I was actually really quite good at it. I had these foundational skills and these competencies that I could take my knowledge and can apply elsewhere. And I was fortunate to move to Deloitte Consulting in the UK, and that kind of allowed me to work across the globe. So I was living and working in Southeast Asia, living and working across Europe. Big time was in Malaysia, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. So majority of the time in Malaysia, fantastic experience and just great working and living in different cultures. And the same was across Europe. So I had the kind of idea one day to be like, oh, maybe I'll be in the US. And I asked, and kind of the stars aligned based on all the work I had done, that I was able to move to the US and Deloitte Consulting, which was fantastic, doing the same stuff, traveling again around the globe, working with major corporations. And I would say how I finally transformed into working as a customer success leader was, I love consulting. I still love it today. I always describe that that's the drug and I'm the addict on that one. But what I really wanted to experience was, how do I kind of build and grow a business? How do I actually still deliver these things for our customers, but also manage and grow a business? And customer success was a great opportunity for me to take my skill set that I'd learned over all the years of kind of understanding value, building those relationships, but also become a customer success leader and actually define the strategy and growth for my own business rather than just doing it for other companies. So that's how I kind of got into customer success.
And so far, you hadn't looked back.
No.
Here you learned what was consulting and you joined Deloitte, like all of the amazing things. As soon as you started describing how you were helping out those companies, even in environmental area, that was exactly how customer success works. It's in a way such a beautiful, natural connection. Speaking of customer success, now you're a leader. You have some of your frameworks, principles, blueprints. Can you pick one customer success principle that you refuse to compromise on, even if you're facing lots of resistance? Like, what would be that one principle to stand by?
Yeah, one principle stand by for our customers, it's value, right? For us to be successful in customer success, we should always be delivering value to our customers, right? And that is sometimes maybe based on the pre-sale situation, maybe based on where the product is. That's a challenge. But as customer success, it's something we should always hold true to. And for all the ethical reasons that we always want to be delivering value, but when we think about it from a business perspective as well, we're only ever going to grow as a company if we are delivering value to our customers and they are getting value from their investment. So to me, value is like the primary principle when we think about customer success, because that's what means we're a healthy and strong business. And it means that our customers are getting the biggest return on their investment. And the final thing I would say to it, why it's important, as someone who's delivering the work and working with the customers, you feel so much better at the end of the day if you believe your customer has had value from the work that you've delivered. So that's kind of why value would be my number one principle.
Do you have any framework or blueprint for helping customers achieve that value? Because very often we always speak about value, and then especially CSMs, when you ask them, okay, so what is value for your customers? This is the answer. They're using the product, which it not exactly is value. So I wonder, how do you actually help customers see that value, and what value is for them in particular point of time?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's something we all struggle with very in customer success. First thing, kind of to your point, a customer using a feature or using your product is not a customer getting value, right? So that's the underlying principle. It's great they're using it, doesn't mean they're getting value from it. I think the thing why value is so hard and the things I consider is because there's so many parts to it. So for you to be able to know that you're delivering value to your customer, first of all, you need to know who your customer is. And that, when I say who, that is like, what is the company doing? What are their objectives? What are their challenges? What are their pain points? But also, who's the buyer? Because a persona, you might be selling to the CFO, you may be selling to the CRO. They're going to have different objectives. They're going to have different challenges. So you need to understand not only what is the company's overall objectives and challenges, but what is the buyer's. And that really helps you set the stone. And that's the line in the sand to be like, if I can hit any of these things or help with any of these things, then I'm going to be delivering value. If I'm not delivering something that has absolutely zero impact on any of these items, the likelihood of that seeming valuable to them is pretty much non-existent. So that really, first of all, understanding who your customer is really important. I think the second piece, when I think about value and the kind of framework around it, is making sure you've got the tools and techniques to be able to kind of understand the value that is being delivered. By that, data, absolutely 100% key. It's normally one of our biggest challenges, but understanding if I'm going to say I've got value, have I got the data? Have I got the facts, the figures, the qualitative insights that are going to able to allow me to kind of present value to the customer, right? So it's kind of knowing what value is and who you're kind of giving it to. And then how do you go about it? Like, how do you actually get that value? Data is key. We also have things that we've created, which is like value calculators, so that you can kind of make some quick numbers and assumptions around value so that you kind of have a fact and a figure. And then the kind of final thing at a high level is value realized and is value acknowledged, right? So you need to know that you've got someone, you know who you have to go to present value to. And you may have realized value, but that is very different to having value acknowledged. Yes. So a lot of the thing is pulling together that value and presenting a POV, and the customer may not like that POV, right? That's your talking point. That's your starter for 10 to kind of challenge the customer, understand what assumptions or what parts of the data are they not happy with, to make them feel like, actually, you think it's realized, but I don't acknowledge that value. So that's why I think at the end, it's always being like making sure you've got that point of view of that value realized, but also working with your customer to influence them to understand what does value acknowledged mean for them. So they're kind of three ways that I look at value.
That's wonderful. What would you advise CSMs? How can they help customers come to the point that they acknowledge value? Is there any particular tools that they should be using? Any skills? Any talk tracks? Because it's very difficult sometimes to almost convince somebody of them. This is actually, value acknowledged, no matter what you think about it, but data is showing it.
Yeah. It really goes to a couple of things. It goes back to what I said at the beginning. You're more likely to get value acknowledged if you know who the buyer is and you know what the company is, right? So you understand specifically what are the kind of challenges they're facing, what are the objectives they're trying to do. If you don't align with that, like I said, it's near impossible. So that is always the first thing. And sometimes, right, you come to the end and you're like ready to present value and you're like, oh, I don't have anyone to present this to. I don't have the relationship anywhere to present this. So as you're going through this journey, one of the things you should really be considering is, again, who is the buyer? Who has a relationship with the buyer? That might not be you. You might actually want to bring in one of your executives or one of your leaders to have that conversation. That's a conversation you want to hone over time and maintain over time. You don't want it to be like, oh, we're going to present value to you, and this is the first time you're going to hear from our chief product officer or our chief customer officer. This is actually a relationship you've had over time and you can present. So having that relationship is really key. The other thing I would say, and I said this, is have something to react to. The worst thing is trying to acknowledge value and you have nothing to react to. It's really upsetting and frustrating when maybe a customer doesn't acknowledge the value. But if you have that starter for 10, you can go back and rework it. You can understand, okay, tell me why this isn't resonating with you. What have I got wrong? What is it like that where I'm off? Or maybe I'm being too ambitious. Like talk me through it. And that allows you to kind of reiterate and kind of go forward with it. And then I think the final thing is also sometimes a challenge of getting value acknowledged is we don't also always get the meeting, right? It's time is critical to everybody. And you may be like, hey, I want to acknowledge value. I want to talk about the value you've realized. And they'll be like, listen, I'm happy with the product. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I don't, I haven't got 15 minutes or they don't even respond to your email. So there's a couple of things that you want to do. Sometimes you do have a really positive customer and you think the sentiment's great. My advice to everybody is still continue to kind of push to kind of get that time. Now, you may not be able to get a live meeting. Send a snappy, impactful email or Slack Connect that's going to put those numbers in front of them, something that they can react to. And the great thing with things like AI nowadays is maybe that's not your forte in generating those kind of communications. Use AI to create that snappy thing that's eye-catching, that maybe will catch the CIO's eye and make them kind of open that email and look at it, right? So I would say sometimes you don't always get that opportunity to present it, but just because you're not meeting them live does not mean that you shouldn't be kind of putting that value in front of them and kind of pushing for their acknowledgement of.
This was a quick masterclass in value. Thank you very much. Let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors as they help us bring this conversation to you free of charge. Today's episode is brought to you by Hook. Have you ever felt that you're drowning in customer data but starving for actual insights? Or have you experienced another green account just turned? We've all been there. And sounds like you need Hook, the AI platform that's transforming how customer success teams actually succeed. Hook doesn't just track risk or churn like other tools. It gives teams clear and strategic direction by identifying what truly matters and where to focus next. Their data-backed health scores are based on reality. That means fewer surprises and more confidence in how you prioritize accounts. Whether you're preparing for renewals, identifying upsell opportunities, or managing a complex portfolio, Hook integrates AI into your everyday workflows for better decision-making. And what about CS leaders? Hook connects customer health directly to revenue across all the segments, from enterprise to long tail, helping you scale consistently without losing strategic depth. Stop reacting, start predicting. Hook is a smarter way to run customer success. Check out the show notes for the link. Visit Hook and book your demo now. Shifting gears a bit. Imagine that you were a CEO for a day and you have a chance to completely demolish some untouchable customer success practice. What would you demolish and what would you build instead? Is there anything that frustrates you, annoys you, you think we're doing it wrong?
It's a really good question. And why? What a joy if you're a CEO for a day. I wouldn't want to be it for a year. But for a day, I think what automatically comes to my mind is our pre-sale, post-sale kind of handoff and that kind of overall customer journey, right? Customer life cycle is what I should say. I think one of the biggest challenges we tend to face, no matter if you're a small company, a Series A startup through to a major public corporation, is when we have different incentives and we're misaligned, sometimes that kind of pre-sales, post-sales relationship and what is agreed on a commercial level does not set up a customer for success. So if I think about from a CEO as a day, I would really, really be working with my sales leaders, with my kind of post-sales leaders to really be like, how do we align our incentives as an organization that we minimize the number of customers we don't set up for initial success? And I think that really starts from having those kind of incentives aligned between the leaders and knowing where the kind of roles and responsibilities sit. But I think that would be one that I think if you could master that, there is a way that you could really minimize those customers that aren't set up for success and then ultimately maximize your kind of growth and retention going forward.
It's a really, really good one. And I wonder, what do you think? Are we having troubles because the teams are just differently incentivized and there is always a bit of a clash almost in serving customers in different ways with different objectives? Or do we have a need for rethinking of those roles, like altogether? Like what could help us in trying to solve that problem?
I think it's a bit of both, right? And I think you want to have in some ways different incentives because a pre-sales role has a very different purpose to a post-sales role, right? So you want to kind of drive incentives and certain behaviors because that's the nature of the roles that you're serving. And where you see this work today so well is where you have strong account team collaboration, where potentially you have your go-to-market organization, both on the pre-sales and post-sales, maybe under your CRO, right? Making sure you're creating the foundation and the environment that creates that team account collaboration. Because the thing is, if you have that collaboration, even if you're slightly different incentivized, you're working together for the best outcome of the customer, right? You're a team effort, and generating a culture that celebrates a team win rather than an individual win is absolutely critical. So I do think that you could refine the roles a little bit and that would help. But I also think really just creating an environment and a culture that celebrates team wins and that is both on the pre-sales and post-sales, from retention to upsell, from new logos, like having that kind of team mentality is really what kind of drives the great outcome.
Thanks for that, Liz. Something captured my attention. You said, oh, if you were a CEO, what a joy, maybe for a day, but not for a year. I wonder your career aspirations. So if you could pick and choose, would you be a CEO of a large company or a startup or a CEO of your own business?
Oh, challenges. I would love to be a CEO at some point. That is my goal. I love the bigger picture and managing things. I think my stress levels might be slightly different if I hit that, but I'd love to do that. What would I want it to be of? Yeah. Oh, that's such a tough one. I think I'm somewhere between, actually, it's the same answer. It would be a startup, but that startup would be my own company. So that would be my answer.
People, brace yourself. Okay, I wonder back to your career because now we know where are you going in the future. You now thinking of the past and your career journey so far, what would you say is one lesson, at least one lesson in career that you have learned and that you feel that every single woman, not even in customer success, but everybody should learn in their life?
Is being flexible. And why I say that is your journey to where you want to go isn't always a straight line, right? It's the path isn't always clear. I started off as an environmental scientist. I'm now a customer success leader in the US, right? Like that's not a linear path, but there were skills and things that I learned along the way that gave me joy and satisfaction. And I realized very early on what are the things that excite me in a role that get me like incentivized and invigorated and want me to kind of do more and give more. And I finish work and I'm happy. I learned those along the way. And having that kind of flexible mind and being like, hey, okay, this path may not be linear, but this opportunity is going to give you these things and you love those things. And actually, pathing that into the bigger kind of picture. So I think that kind of flexibility or comfort with the kind of unknown ambiguity is, I think, really critical to any kind of successful career, because I found in the few times that I've tried to be very linear and be like, oh, but this is the natural next step, I've become unhappy because I'm forcing myself down a path that may not necessarily be open, but also may not be one that is kind of ticking the things that I enjoy in life. So knowing that, taking that look and be like, is this going to give me what I need? Yes or no? And if it's not, hey, maybe I need to take a side step. Maybe I need to take a lateral move. Maybe I move into a slightly different type of industry to really get what's going to kind of make me happy enough to get up at 5:30 in the morning to kind of kick off my day.
And you speak so much about happiness and joyfulness and what gives you joy. So what are those things within your work or life that gives you joy and that makes you get up at 5:30? Like, what are those drivers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit crazy getting up at 5:30 every day, but that's a personal choice. I think what gives me drive is, and I kind of alluded it to a little bit earlier, I love being challenged.
Mm.
So I love when a problem is put in front of me, and it may make me a little stressed initially and be like, oh, can I deal with this? But having the ability to look at a challenge, and that could be building out a success function, it could be resolving a major kind of customer escalation. It could be, redefining a process, right? But a challenge is put in front of me and said, hey, here's the problem statement. And we don't know what to do. And to me, that's like a present kind of delivered where you're like, okay, I got to unwrap this. I got to work out what's inside. What are all the things? What are maybe the extra gadgets I need to buy to make this present even better? So really being able to like break it down and then kind of be like, how do we rebuild this? Or how do we create something out of this that's going to solve that challenge and come up with a solution that can be shared by, not just me, but at scale. So for me, it's really about being challenged and kind of stretched and being able to kind of dig into things and kind of make things easier for other people.
And I wonder, you surely had those situations in your beautiful career so far, but how have you gone about creating opportunities for your career advancement?
Yeah, really, really good question. And I think the mantra I truly believe in is you own where your career goes, right? Like nobody owes you anything, you owe them nothing. It's all about you driving your path to success and whatever success looks like for you. So I think first of all, the big thing is understanding what does success look like for you and understanding that's not the same as your best friend or your peer or your leader. It's what actually works for you and what you get happiness and joy and satisfaction from. So that's the first thing. I think if you don't understand that, any opportunity you try and open up is going to be really hard. I think then for me, when you're have a clear vision of doesn't need to be, hey, what's my long-term goal? I want to become a CEO of my own company. It may only be like I've got a 2, 3, 5 year outlook, but understanding what is kind of next, what's the journey that you want to go on. That's really important because then it's like as you think about it, you can start identifying, okay, so if I want to get to that next step, maybe that's going from being an individual contributor to being a people leader. Having that moment of pause, being like, okay, so what are maybe the skills, the competencies, the experience I don't have that I need to build that will help me be qualified for that role or be a good, strong candidate for that role. I think there sometimes people are automatically like, oh, there's no open position for me to kind of jump into. But you don't need there to be an open position. What you can look about and look across your work is like, actually, I need to understand more about business to be a strong candidate for a people leader. So maybe there's an opportunity where I can help my current leader or my colleagues on their kind of operational readiness activities so that I can get more exposure and understanding to the business. Maybe it's like, oh, I actually want to understand the kind of people management side of things. Maybe there's an opportunity where I can mentor or indirectly and informally upscale my peers by sharing my best practices and assets. So when I think about identifying opportunities, it's about assessing where do you have those gaps and then looking across like your sphere of influence and access and being like, hang on a second, could I get that skill or could I build that experience if I went and did this? And it could be a new role, but it could also be, and most likely like 85% of the time, is an experience within your current role, but it's a different one that you kind of purposely carve out for yourself.
I love how you're putting responsibilities on everybody individually, because that's truly, as you said, career is an individual matter. Other people can help you, guide you, but it's up to you to decide what even interests you, what gives you joy, what are the things you want to do, and then just recognize those little things that will open up doors for skills development and just help you get there. That's wonderful advice. And it also changes through seasons of life. I'm currently in the season where for me, biggest success is when I have time to go and see my kids on their activities and pick them up and just having that time with them. It was very different than 2 years ago, very different than what next 10 years brings or whatever. So it's always also recognizing that not every goal and success is equal in every single year of your life.
100%. I had one leader and a mentor once tell me, it was like, Liz, and I was, upset about I wasn't promoted one year. This was when I was in consulting. She was like, Liz, 1 year out of your entire career, which is probably from the majority of us going to be about 30 years, is a blip. It's a drop in the ocean. And that perspective, I was like, why am I even stressing or frustrating about it? What did I learn in this year that's going to help me achieve other things or kind of open other doors? And it was just like, this is just one moment in time. And like you said, it's so true that success looks different and there's different kind of waves and versions of it throughout your entire career, which is long. So
Pretty long. Yeah, you just reminded me, not only people live longer now, not only people work longer, it's just that people start being creators of their own lives, and you don't just stop working and retire and now you're not doing anything. It just evolves, but you constantly want to do things. It's all about recognizing those moments and those little things that give you joy. This has been fantastic. Wrapping up with one question. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
one thing, and this would be, I think, both on my professional side and in my personal life, is being there for others. So I think as a leader, I always hope to kind of like inspire my team, but also be there for them when they need me to kind of empower them or to kind of provide coverage on those rare occasions. But same with my personal life is being there and being known there to be the person who will always stand next to the friend.
Oh, that's wonderful. Liz, thank you so much for coming to the show. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate you taking time to learn something new and propel your career in customer success and beyond. If you like this episode, share it with your colleague, with your team member, with someone you know needs to hear it today. We appreciate your support, so please follow us and subscribe to our channels so many more women can hear about this.